This podcast is brought to you by SalesFuel Hire, a platform to help companies hire smarter and flag 13 toxic employee types. Measure job fit, sales tendencies and motivators, decision-making abilities, and empathy levels, and make your next hire your best hire. Try it now on salesfuel.com/hire and use promo code MANAGESMARTER for $50 off your first purchase. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
It's the Manage Smarter podcast, and Lee, today it's just you and me, last show of season 2, and a little bit of host confessional time here. What do you think?
It's interesting because one of the things that I hear occasionally is that people say, well, it's like, it's all about the guest, because in 20 minutes we try to get as much insight from the guest to be able to share with you, the listener, as we possibly can. And, but one of the things that I hear is like, we'd really like to hear more from you and Audrey. And it's like, we're so focused on the guest and getting those insights out that, we interject, a pithy remark or, some insight of our own, that sort of thing. But yeah, you're right. Today is just you and me. And it's something that I wanted to do last year. And we didn't get it put together because we were so busy preparing for season 2. But this year we get to do it. Whereas like, so many people these days do a best of or a year in review or anything like that. And it's great to be able to take a look back and think about all the things we learned. And it's like, and I don't want to drone on too much, but for me, Audrey, I look forward to doing these because this is my continuing education. I come to this podcast every week then, to learn something new, but also I have to prepare for the guests like you do. I mean, you do show prep like no other. And I have to do the same, one, to be able to keep up with you, but 2, to really get the most out of the guest. And so for me, it's like I learn something new every week doing this.
Okay, so for 2019, what was the top most meaningful thing that you personally learned from this show? We'll start with you because you're the big cheese.
Wow,
the grand poobah.
that and that's a tough question. It's like because it really runs the gamut. For me, it's like, hearing Cy Wakeman talk about accountability and helping out there with some of her tips on accountability, I thought was really fascinating. I mean, then we had Jennifer Gittimer on late in the season, where we learned that you can really network from anywhere. I thought that was great. I loved Chris Denny's bird dog test.
Yeah, the bird dog test. Tell people what that was again. Remind them, because
I'm trying to recall. So his podcast was all about attention to details. And if they're going to hire somebody with attention to details, then he would have them put the word bird dog into whatever assignment he gave them.
As part of the audition process.
As part of the audition process. That's right. If they didn't do it,
you're out.
Couldn't work it in. It's like, sorry, no, this is a very specific instruction that I gave you. It's like, and silly as it was, you didn't do it, or you forgot to do it, or couldn't work it in, or didn't think it was important enough. You're gone. I thought that was really cool. And lastly, for me, I thought, and I can't say lastly because there was something new every week. But Anthony Iarino, when we were talking about this discovery, which is, that's my jam. I mean, when it comes to sales and the discovery process, I built a business on that. But it's like, even I learned something new about that from him, where he was saying, is like, the best discovery that you can do is when the prospect learns something new about themselves. And it's not because you told them, it's because you asked a question that made them think introspectively then to discover something new about themselves. And that was, with all the years I've been doing this or whatever, it was great to actually hear something new, in the field that I've been devoting my life to.
Mm-hmm. And so,
how about you?
I was going to say, did you discover anything new about yourself this year? I've got some doozies about myself.
Well, I do, but it's like, I want to hear more from you. I want to hear what you thought.
Don't deflect.
Well, no, it's just like, I don't want to dominate the conversation because I've been doing.
Well, I was a television news reporter for years. I'm used to asking the questions. Your buddy. Just kidding.
Well, I'm also used to asking the questions too, because Jeffrey Gittimer, taught me, my sales mentor is like, the person that asked the questions is the one who's in control of the conversation. So
that's right.
So I think that's one of the things that makes this thing work, because you and I both like to ask questions and we're both very curious. And, the other thing that I do is a little known fact, but it's like, I don't mind sharing, is like, I come to these podcasts with one question in mind. and I'll ask that one question, but then I'm listening intently, and I'm really thinking, and I'm really participating in the podcast like I'm a listener, and I feel like my goal is to ask questions that the listener is thinking of. And so many times you and I will do these podcasts, and we'll do them weeks in advance, and I'll listen to them again. And it's been a couple months, so maybe I've forgotten exactly what comes next. And so I'll be saying, "Oh wow!" It's like, ask this, and then I asked that, or you asked that. And I was like, and I was so excited because we actually asked the question that I felt like the listener at the time would be asking or want to know about. So
there's an
that's how
art to active listening. Active listening takes
Absolutely.
a lot of energy, and listening takes less energy.
Yeah, and sometimes we can over prepare. I mean, it's like that. Sometimes like when I'm really enthusiastic about a guest, I'll come with more than one prepared question, and I want to get all those questions asked and answered. And I don't know that I don't know necessarily that works as well, but it's like sometimes you can over prepare, and it's like you and I are all about preparation, and we don't just show up and bullshit like we're doing today.
I would say, though, for you, one thing that you've put into motion for our company that came out of season 2 and what we learned is the refining your audition and hiring process here at SalesFuel.
That's right. Because we've needed to do that. And, it's not like, it's like, you guys are so good at, discovery with candidates, and hiring good salespeople and everything like that. Well, like anything, it's like, the learning, you try to learn as much as you can from other people's mistakes, but sometimes you have to make your own mistakes. And we've done that, and we've learned from it. And the thing that we've learned, though, is that the biggest thing that we've learned, I would say, is that we're not alone. And I think that's to the listener as well. You're not alone either. It's like, some of the things that you're struggling with on a regular basis is like, you're not that unique. It's like a lot of other people, a lot of other managers, emerging leaders are struggling with the same things. And that's why the audience for this podcast has grown and grown over the past 2 years. Because we talk about the psychological approach to management and to leadership, and the emotional approach to it. So psychological and emotional. And, originally, when we started out, we thought we were going to talk a lot about metrics and measurability and that sort of thing. And then we realized that it's really more about the emotion and psychology of it. And that's where we've been focusing a lot of our guests and a lot of our emphasis.
Yeah, and you had an article in Fast Company magazine about a very difficult hire that you had and some of the mistakes you made. And it was very stressful for you.
It was very stressful.
I remember
because
that time.
We had a couple of things going on.
So we're learning too.
Yeah, it's like, so one of them was personal, one of them was professional. The professional one is that, when you hire someone who's toxic, and, it's very stressful on you psychologically, emotionally, and also financially. And where a lot of the stress comes then is not just from the stress it puts on you, but it's the stress that comes from other people in the organization who are being negatively impacted by that person as well. And because you want to help them, and you want to help them, you want to help them cope and deal with the situation in the moment, and stay focused on their work. But same point in time, it's like if you have a heart, it's like you feel bad for them, and then you also feel bad for them because, as Cy Wakeman says, it's like you either hired it or you manage it or you or you put up with it.
You enabled it. Yeah.
Yeah, you enabled it. And so, you go check, and then you realize, then you feel doubly bad about yourself. But in sharing some of those stories, and little bits and pieces and everything like that, just like we are not alone. It's like we did a webinar recently where we asked the audience then about have they ever had to manage a toxic salesperson, or have they ever had a toxic manager? And 98% of them said yes. And I was stunned that number was so high. So that's been an area of emphasis. So we talked to Steve Sisler, for example. He was a guest on the second season as well. And I loved what he said about what work should feel like. I'm not going to ruin it for people. I'm a little uncomfortable about using that language that he used, but
no. Be careful.
Yeah, exactly. No, I thought that, and then we had Michelle Michelle Tillis Letterman, for example,
Mhm.
talked about mindset. And again, particularly as it applies to the hiring process. And we had,
I had a thread of, for me, what was most meaningful uh, was all the shows that had the thread of the theme of wellness and stress and work-life balance and responding instead of reacting and
well,
reining in
so
your
what were
temper.
some of your favorite guests
Yeah, well,
on
you
that
and I
topic?
are two very different personalities, and you've been mentoring me. And I think that you're the better person, quite frankly, because remember, everybody, I came out of a newsroom where you have like a bunch of
Talk about your toxic
teachers, and
atmosphere.
I have, a bit of a temper, and I've just completely obliterated my reactions instead of the thoughtful, critical thinking responses, which is where I am now, which is a much better place to be. Um, Rather than being in a newsroom where you see an anchor throwing a huge tape at the head of a assignment editor they don't like because something happened that made them angry. I mean, it's just
Mm-hmm.
not it's not the best work environment, but I found that I loved Steve Napolitan. I said it
Mm.
right? Not Neapolitan ice cream,
Yes.
Napolitan, and the work-life balance. And I'm trying to not beat myself up so hard all the time, and to lower my stress levels, even when stuff's going sideways. When that happens, try not to let that happen, and stop to smell the roses and, you know, be an honest broker, Jan Allen. Her
Mm-hmm.
say, if you're transparent all the time, then you're never going to run into any issues on that front. You always know what's going on. I
If
try to
you're
tell
always
them.
transparent, you don't have to get transparent.
Exactly. And then, this Mitch Schneider, who nearly died and
Oh,
now is looking through a lens of graciousness, for every day to him is like a gift. He's not supposed to allegedly be here, and he's here. And to say, you know what? I mean, we're so grateful to have our jobs and our work family, and we all want to hit it out of the park. But it's like, don't, beat yourself over the head with a baseball bat. My Lucille bat from Walking Dead, by the way, it made it through the move, everybody.
mm-hmm.
um, Try to be a little bit kinder with yourself and with everybody else, because the stress is really, with this move to Dallas, I moved everybody. My stress levels were through the roof, and I really felt it. So I'm trying to be healthier
Well, and
about everything in general.
speaking of that guest, I mean, that guest to me was heaven sent because my father passed away this year, and that was very emotional because it was my last parent. My mother passed away a few
Yeah.
years earlier, and and you'll sometimes hear me reference some of the crazy country phrases and sayings that both my mom and my dad have used throughout my childhood, and I'll share those on the show. And the thing about Mitch was I could really identify with him, because it's like that's God, he felt like my dad. I was like, car nut, the Corvette lover,
Yeah.
just,
Right.
uh, you know, yeah, nearly died from cancer. My dad beat cancer for 9 years. It's like it was the diabetes that got him.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was, and in talking about the emotions that he went through were very similar to what my dad went through, and and at the same time I was going through all of the 7 stages and the
Mm-hmm.
anger and the all
You're an
that.
orphan now.
Yeah, it's
Oh
like,
my.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's like my dad and I, and whatever issues we had growing up, I had growing up. It's like we patched those up or whatever. We had a very good relationship and everything like that. So I have no remorse or no regrets or anything like that. But even still, it's like I'm still dealing with closing out his estate, and it's like it was
I think we almost all cried during that show.
it really was for me probably
It
one of
was
the most
close.
emotional shows we had done.
So that's Mitch Schneider, everybody. You want to listen to that one. But I did appreciate all the tips that we got regarding that, because I think that, like we learned, it's the effect of stress on your body is underrated or unrecognized, I guess.
Yeah, and there's the thing too. I mean, we had a guest late in the season and talking about how the manager has to take and the leader has to take care of their own wellness. To ordinarily to be able to give to others. It's like a dead battery can't charge a dead battery. He didn't say that, but
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless, that was the theme of it. And you're right. That was a thread that ran throughout the season. We started off early in the season 2. I remember Scott. What was Scott Dickers? Is that his name? Who was it from The Onion?
From
and
The
we talked
Onion,
about
founder of The
we
Onion.
talked about workplace humor and so much you can't say these days.
Yep.
And so we also try to keep up with the latest challenges that managers and leaders are facing in the workplace as it changes, and as if people's needs change and culture changes, and and we have to change right along with it, and we really have to be adaptive people. And so you would expect that one. I expected that show to be very funny. As it turns out, it was just very insightful.
Yeah.
And and that's the other thing I really like about the show is that you go into it thinking it's going to be one thing, and then it ends up being something totally different, and you just roll with it.
But for years, I wasn't really schooled in company culture, and if you're clearly in a job in a company that is completely, the culture feels insanely uncomfortable to you. I mean, at least you would know now that you should probably make a change for yourself, because the effect of a mismatch of company culture is horrible. I mean, it's just like going to the gulag every day. And I've been in situations like that, and I've talked about it on the show. One agency that I work for in Colorado, I mean, I was physically ill. So having to go in.
Yeah, and I was still thinking about Neen James, with her Australian accent was fantastic. But it's like the whole show about paying attention, and tips for how to do that, why you need to do that, and you need to pay attention all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
She was fantastic. And speaking of that part of the world, where Darby Doll, talking about doing business and managing people in the Asia Pacific region,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the differences, the vast differences that we have, between us folks here in North America and our listeners then in that part of the world, and some of the opportunities, though, the huge opportunities there. So it's like, if you're not, if you're a manager right now and you're just, in North America, or you're in Europe or something like that, it may not be long before you're managing people or suppliers or something like that from that part of the world. So because there's just so much opportunity, there's so much growth to be had there.
So listeners, for season 3, we need your help. You can email me at astrong@salesfuel.com. We have some topics we want for season 3. So if you know somebody who's an expert in, say, a process for facilitating better, more productive meetings.
Performance evaluations. We want to get into that.
Better email
skills.
writing, negotiations. These are some of the topics that we're interested in. So send us guest suggestions. We really want to get more into a two-way conversation with you all via email, or you can tweet us through our social media at salesfuel.com. The other thing is we would love your guest suggestions as well. We had one come in, we're a fan of the show, and we just booked a guest off of that this week. And so, we really would love to hear more from you about what you guys want to learn about, and what folks you would like to have on the show. And if that's you, then go ahead and shoot me an email. You can also call.
We have a form on managesmarter.com.
We do.
And, to be a guest inquiry. And it's like, and you can also use that as well then to make suggestions. But like, I do like the idea of, shooting Audrey an email and tweeting at us, and, using LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah. I think there's some untouched topics. There's a laundry list of them that we just haven't gotten to yet. And, I would even like to learn, this is not just writing emails, but I actually had a person look at my Gmail box recently. This is my private personal email. But the way that I file things, and then my number of unreads, and not cleaning certain bins out, and they were absolutely like appalled. He said, "Oh my God, I would like to learn a better way to sort and eliminate and move emails around in a way that is more organized." And apparently, if you leave a lot of unread emails in your inbox, even the spammy stuff, it's not good to have like where it says unread emails 5,625. Well, it's not that I'm not reading the pertinent stuff, but you know what I'm saying.
Totally. And we had
never
Jeffrey
thought of that.
Hazlett on in season 1 talking about secrets of the C-suite. One of the other areas that we want to dive into in season 3 is managing up. So, how do you manage your boss? And because we all have one, even if they're at home, we all have one. So, that's a very key topic that we want to have back. Also, it's like, what other guests have we had on the show that you'd like to have back on the show? We would love to hear your feedback on that.
I'd like to do something with somebody who's got a really compelling story to tell about being a middle manager, managing up and managing down. Because when I became that with the Ritz-Carlton, it was a whole new structure for me and very challenging for a lot of different ways and exhilarating for other ways. But being middle management's tough.
Yeah,
we haven't really talked about it very much.
My first management experience was like I had all the responsibility of a manager, but had no power or authority.
Ugh.
Oh yeah, so I really had to use my sales skills, in that situation. And it's like, but it was very tough and very challenging. But it's like we still have managed to get the job done. And I was still open to the same amount of criticism as the other managers, and I was in the managers' meetings, sharing out, doing all the reports and everything like that, but had no power or authority over the people that I needed to have get things done.
Yep.
That was rough. And so it's like to hear, if that's still going on out there. I'm sure it probably is, and to some degree. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sounds good. Well, we wanted to say happy holidays to everybody who listens, and thank you for listening. And again, if you guys can subscribe, rate, and review and send this around, but in particular, give us 5 stars on the major podcast outlets, that will help the show immensely. We appreciate it. Tell a colleague and a friend.
We appreciate you as a listener for being with us every week, because we notice through our metrics and everything like that boy, we have regular listeners, and we love you. And especially the listeners around the world in India and England and Africa and South America in particular, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. We have quite a few there, all throughout Europe. And I'm sure there's countries that I haven't mentioned, particularly those in Canada and Mexico, obviously. But it's great to see that. And also, if there's some topics that you have in mind that that we haven't addressed because we have more of a Western perspective, and you'd like to actually hear more about some folks in your region of the world, by all means, please suggest that as well.
Sounds good. So astrong@salesfuel.com. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great holiday. And season 3 starts in January.
And we're looking forward to it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at SalesFuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.